My dear Sitecore family, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and a namaste to all. It's a great pleasure to be back. The SUGIN team, myself, Varun Sringarpure, author of Sitecore Endeavor, Mr. Kiran Patil, author of Sitecore Basics, Mr. Brijesh Patel, the author of Take It Pro, and Mr. Nilesh Thakkar, author of Sitecore Journey, are back with yet another session on Sitecore User Group India. Well, I'm telling you more about the SUGIN team, when we kicked off the SUGIN Sitecore User Group India on 26th of Jan, we had just one MVP with us, Mr. Kiran Patil. But it's a great pleasure to tell you that the Sitecore User Group India team is now a Sitecore MVP team. Yes, my dear friends, Nilesh Thakkar, Brijesh Patel, and myself are awarded Sitecore Technology MVP this year. And it's a hat trick for Mr. Kiran Patil. So we ideally want to take this moment to thank the Sitecore team, mainly for going through our contributions, community contributions like blogs and white papers, SDN forum replies and all, and awarding us for an MVP. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. Well, today it's great to be back with the second session of Sitecore User Group India, which is on Introduction to Sitecore XP, the Sitecore Experience Platform. Yes, my dear friends, and it has been taken by none other than Mr. Sheetal Jain. Mr. Sheetal Jain is a Sitecore MVP since 2013, and it's a hat trick for him too. So let's congratulate him for being a Sitecore MVP again for the third time. And he's been working with horizontal integration from a long time, and he's worked as a Sitecore architect over there. And he's been working on Sitecore since 2008, which I think is a pretty long time. And today he is with us to share his knowledge and expertise on Sitecore Experience Platform. So over to you, Sheetal. Hi, Sheetal. Over to you.
So, good morning, team, and good afternoon or good evening. Myself, Sheetal Jain. First of all, I would like to say greetings to all of my India viewers. Namaste to you all, and greetings to the viewers all over the world. Myself, Sheetal Jain. I'm an architect at Horizontal Integration. I work out of our Minneapolis headquarters, based in Twin Cities. So the topic for today's presentation would be Sitecore Experience Platform. So now here I'm probably going to share my screen. I hope you all are able to see my screen.
The screen is visible, but not the PPT.
Give me a second, guys. I'm just making sure that I share the screen appropriately. So, can you view my slide, guys?
Yep, you can.
Okay. So, finally got started. It's always a little nervous with these all online tools, but yeah, I think we're good here. So, the topic for today's presentation will be Introduction to Sitecore Experience Platforms. And before starting the presentation, I have a couple of housekeeping notes. So the first thing would be, this is a technical presentation, and it does require some background knowledge of Sitecore content management system. Although this presentation is well-rounded, and there is a little bit for everyone. So if you are a project manager, if you are a developer, if you are an architect, or a digital marketer, you will have certainly some things to learn from here. So last Christmas, Sitecore announced this new little toy called Sitecore 8. There was a huge joy in the Sitecore community about this fantastic experience platform. And Sitecore has done really a huge makeover with this new product. I have been playing around with this for a couple of months. I have a couple of active projects going on in Sitecore 8, and I have learned a lot of little things about Sitecore Experience Platform. So today, my focus will be to just give you the basics and foundation on how Sitecore 8 is built, and along with the vision Sitecore is envisioning with this product. I'm a great fan of quotes, right? And I share the same passion as Kiran. Kiran also has some fantastic quotes. If you have not already known, one of them would be uh, "Back to basics, stick to basics, because basics always work." And I'm hugely inspired by that quote too. But one other thing today is, Rabba is a good author, and one of the quotes he wrote was, "In vain have you acquired knowledge if you do not impart it to others." So today it will be my honest attempt to impart my knowledge on Sitecore 8 so far, and hopefully, an hour of your weekend personal time spent on this session, I promise you will be certainly helpful and useful. So quickly, let's not waste time and move on to our agenda. So the agenda is pretty lucid. You might see these are very heavy topics, but I'll make sure that we go over it nice and clean, and then we'll also have some time for Q&A. So as you can see the agenda, we're just going to have introduction to Experience Platform, do a little bit of XDB overview on architectural changes. One of the important point I want to talk about is scalable services architecture. And I'll explain you more about that, but that is one of the key driving factors behind Sitecore 8. Then moving on to Experience Profile, Analytics Events, and Analytic Reporting. Most of them have been around for a long time, but I would like to go over the key changes which were made in Sitecore 8. And then finally, we'll wrap up with some Q&A. So this diagram might be very much familiar to all the Sitecore enthusiasts. This is pretty much a pre-Sitecore 7.5 architecture. In it, this is a very scaled down diagram for brevity purposes. But as you can see, you have a workstation, you have a web application server which hosts your site, which is IIS site, and then you have a list of databases. As we all know, Sitecore Content Management System is a database-driven CMS. So obviously, on the right-hand side, you have databases, master, core, web, analytics, and reporting. And reporting is certainly an optional one, and which was used by high traffic solutions to make sure that the reporting does not consume a lot of SQL resources. So now, when we talk about Sitecore 8, what really has differed, right? So now here is a brief look at our SQL server. What has changed? So this master, core, and web, they still remain the same. These are fundamental aspects of it. Nothing has really changed, and they are pretty common, and most of the functionality still is live today. Too quickly, for people who really don't know what these three are used for, master, you can really term it as a master repository where your in-authoring content or preview content resides. Core database is a Sitecore system database, because Sitecore is a software-based application. You have a lot of editors and inbuilt Sitecore functionality. So the core database is used for Sitecore system and also authentication purposes like storing user profiles, username, and passwords. Then we have this web database. Some people call it live database also, because this is the database which is serving content to your live audience. So now let's talk about what is exactly new in Sitecore 8. So the analytics database, which was called previously in Sitecore pre 7.5, has been changed to the name reporting database. The reporting database, as you can see, is still a SQL server. It's still a SQL database. So I would say that that's the name change, but obviously there's a lot of schema changes too. Sitecore now introduced a whole new segment called MongoDB. So now what is MongoDB? MongoDB is a NoSQL database, which is just a document type of database, and the main idea being highly scalable. So let's look at what are the different databases in Sitecore Experience. Okay. So before going that, as you can see, this Sitecore has introduced this whole new technology stack called MongoDB, and it's open source. So really, one of the basic questions I have asked myself is, okay, if Sitecore is changing a whole of a technology stack to store data, there must be certainly some reason behind it, And I tried to do some research, and after playing a little bit, I really found that there was a very important and key reason why MongoDB was selected as a platform. So now, At a high level definition, MongoDB is an open source NoSQL document oriented database. This key term, document oriented database, is important because all our life we have been using SQL Server, or at least me, and I always know that SQL Server is a schema based. You would have a schema like a table and a name, and you would have restrictions like primary keys and different type of data which you can go into. But this MongoDB is completely schema-less, which means NoSQL, and it's a document-oriented database, which means it just stores document in a BSON format. BSON format is just like a JSON format, but it's called it's a binary serialized object. So one of the very, very key factors is scaling. Scaling is a term used in technology to support a large amount of data and large amount of processing power. So one of the key takeaways from MongoDB is it can be scalable vertically and horizontally. So now let's talk about, okay, fantastic, MongoDB is good, it is fast, it is scalable, but why did Sitecore introduce it now? So the third bullet point is very primary. Pre-Sitecore 7.5, all the visitor analytics data was collected and stored in SQL Server, which means over the time when the data gets accumulated, when you have a lot of visitor traffic, things get slow because obviously the data is more, and Sitecore reporting used SQL queries behind the scenes. Although we had a little bit of help from cache, we always used to experience serious load times, and that was a growing concern. And not having a plan of archiving the data or managing the data becomes very, very difficult. So one of the drawbacks with SQL Server Analytics database in pre-Sitecore 7.5, it is that you can scale it vertically, which means you can increase the size of the server, but you cannot scale it horizontally, which means that you could do SQL mirroring, but you cannot break down the data into multiple servers. And that's where, to achieve this improvement, this is one single most very important reason that scalability was required in Sitecore solutions, because it is going to be a heavy analytics intensive solution. So when you talk about Sitecore 8, there's a lot of improvements in the experience platform, which is all driven by customer, because one customer, one system. So this idea required to have a scalable, high performant and high available solution. And Mongo perfectly fits this bill, because if you look at some of the existing implementations in Mongo, some organizations use almost up to 40 petabytes of information on MongoDB, and then they can scale them pretty easily. So that's one of the reasons. So now you all know that, okay, why MongoDB was selected. So again, I would like to take one look at what are the databases. Obviously you have a lot of databases, some of them in SQL and some of them in Mongo. I have listed out every single possible database which can be used by Sitecore 8. I have a couple of them which have star marked towards it, and those are either used by Sitecore system or only used during maintenance, which means that they are really, as a developer, we really do not interact with them directly. They are used for some system purposes. So in MongoDB, you can see there is tracking. There are three types of tracking databases: contact, live, and history. And session database are session and shared session. We will really talk about all of these in detail, but I just wanted you guys to have a high-level overview of what are these different aspects of different databases. So now let's talk about some terminology changes. Sitecore, when they really came into different types of MongoDB, and then they changed the terminology. So obviously we are familiar with visitor and visit terminology, but they have changed slightly. So the first term which I would like, contact. Now what is a contact? A contact is a visitor that uses one or more devices to interact with an organization, and contact can be directly correlated with a person. So what is interaction? An interaction is a way in which a contact, which is obviously a visitor or customer, communicates or engages with your organization. For example, the pages he clicks, the goals he triggers, any kind of interaction with your website, online and offline. It is an important aspect that online or offline, they can all be merged and called as interaction. We have this third one called automation states. An automation state is a part in an engagement plan. So it stores the document that keep track of them, of contacts. So on the right hand side, you see an image, and that image is a snapshot taken from a tool called RoboMongo, and it shows what is stored inside our analytics. So I have this analytics database, and I'm using Sitecore 8 update 3. And you can see a list of collections. So these are the list of collection, and each collection has its name. So on the right hand side, you can see a bunch of them, starting from automation ranges to user agents. So in order to show this demo, I'm going to use a tool called RoboMongo. RoboMongo is an open source shell-centric Mongo GUI, and obviously it is free, and I have had pretty good luck with it, but there are some other tools too. But for this demonstration purposes, I'll be using RoboMongo. So I'm going to, so this is RoboMongo, and obviously I have connected. So I'm going to take a look at our analytics database. So as you can see, the analytics has a collection. Obviously, there's a first folder called blue folder called system, and then system is nothing but it is an indexing pattern where Mongo system indexes are stored regarding that databases. It also contains information of different type of document collections. Obviously, we don't call it tables anymore. We call it document collection. A collection is a list of documents stored in one format. So obviously, you can see some of them are pretty clear. Like for example, contacts. Contacts is a visitor which is stored, and you have interactions and different stuff like that. So now I'm going to just a high level. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open an automation states and see what is stored in that. So now, obviously, as you can see, MongoDB is really good. In RoboMongo, it basically accepts a query. It's easy to query, just the DB name, the table name, and then you can call a .find to find all the results. So here is a collection of documents. So if I can open one of the documents, so here is some information. So here, obviously, as you can see, it is a document-based collection, and the document has a lot of key value pairs. Right now, RoboMongo is really good because Mongo really does not play very well with GUIDs. So I had to do some customizations in order to make sure that the GUID appears. So here, what you see, this is exactly a GUID format. So contact ID. So the thing which I've highlighted is a GUID, and which is directly referenced in different areas. We'll talk about more a little later on, but I just wanted you to just get a quick feel of it, like, okay, what are the different databases and how things look inside of Mongo. I have different databases here, as you can see. I have session, shared session, tracking contact, tracking live, and tracking history. So again, most of these are system databases. We really don't interact as a developer. The key one which we interact is called analytics, and that's where most of our magic happens. Getting back to our presentation, I always told about, a scalable services architecture. So the scalable services architecture is important. But even before we really know that, there are 4 pillars of it, which we really need to understand in order to understand this whole Sitecore 8 architecture. Those are, first thing, collection. Second is processing. Third is reporting. And fourth is session state. So these 4 concepts are highly important to understand how this whole experience platform architecture is designed. So let's take a look at the first one, which is collection. So Sitecore uses MongoDB, and the collection database is the one which we just saw, called analytics. So the main role of collection database is nothing but to collect and process all the analytics data from your websites. So this data can include interaction, contacts, devices, location, automation data, and events. Some key advantages are it is capable of collecting and storing vast amount of data. It can handle genuinely billions of visits or interactions per year. So this is very, very critical for high performing websites. So it is provide scalability option to increase storage capacity. So in a couple of slides earlier, we really saw that SQL Server cannot scale horizontally, right? And that was a pending problem. And then that's what MongoDB was doing. So I would like to show you an image which really explains that. I want to talk to you about a new concept called sharding. A sharding is a concept where if you have a collection, which is a MongoDB, and you have 1 terabyte of data and it is growing consistently, then you can divide them into shards, which holds certain set of data. So the 1 terabyte data is broken down into different set of data. And then if you decide that, hey, I am getting more and more traffic, you can keep on adding shards. This is one of the very important features of MongoDB for scalable solutions. Although you do not need to do that, you can still have just one big collection and store all the data in that, but sharding can efficiently increase the performance, also maintain scalability. So that is one of the key reasons. So to summarize, collection database is nothing but which holds the analytics data. One other key important things I want you to understand is the session end event. As we all know, a .NET session is a session where a certain period of time a contact interacts with our website. So as soon as the session ends, or if it expires, all the data on session end events is got pulled into collection database. So the moment from where the user starts to interact with our site until the session ends, all the data is stored in session. And again, session can be in proc, which is in process, or out proc, which is out process, and it can be stored or configured differently. Later down, we'll talk about session states and why they are important. But for now, all I want you to understand is at session end, data goes into MongoDB. That's what you want to know. Let's talk about next important topic called processing. What is processing? Processing is a data analysis layer that can perform several kind of data processing. So I have highlighted into 4 different types of processing Sitecore does. First, aggregation. Second, continuous update. Third, rebuilding the reporting database. And fourth is maintenance. So the key ones or which runs day to day would be aggregation and continuous update. So aggregation processing extracts the data from the collection database, groups it, reduces it, and stores the data into reporting database. So here is an interesting logic. Processing is nothing but it acts as a bus between your collection database, which is Mongo, and the reporting database, which is SQL. The processing is a key operation because what it does is it takes all the raw data from MongoDB, reduces it, and compresses it, and so that it is suitable for SQL reporting. So that is one of the key interesting information about aggregation. The continuous update is it constantly monitors for session end, and as soon as the session ends, the MongoDB will invoke an aggregation process, and that aggregation process will crawl the data and pushes it into the collection data. A couple of other things are also there, similar to rebuilding reporting database and maintenance. So these things are nothing but they generally are used for higher level system maintenance, and we'll talk about that a little later. So again, at a high level, processing is nothing but collecting the data from Mongo and pushing it to reporting. That's a one-line statement. Moving on, let's talk about reporting. The analytics reporting database stores aggregated information from the collection database optimized for fast querying and reporting. This is certainly very, very important logic because this reporting database now does not contain all the data or all the raw data. It contains compressed or reduced data so that it is only efficient for just reporting. So you can really talk about that. Hey, earlier we used to have this analytics database and it used to have a lot of data. So wouldn't it have that lot of data even now? Certainly, it will have the data, but the thing is, it has been optimized to the level that it is the primary purpose of reporting is just to view the reports and not collect the data. So that is a key improvement over here. Now, if you there's a new terminology or a new set of definition given to this reporting database. It is called facts and dimension table. So now what is this facts and dimension table? So if you look up the dictionary of database management systems, a fact table is nothing but it contains the information about an event, but it contains a reference to a lookup table, and then the lookup table is nothing but dimension table. So in terms that dimension and fact are the key value pairs where fact stores the data, dimension reference the data. So quickly I would like to show you the structure of reporting databases and how it is stored. So now, obviously, the tables in reporting databases have drastically changed. As you can see, you have a bunch of fact tables, right? So everything is fact. So if you are familiar with Sitecore pre 7.5 reporting, you would have a report for slow pages, right? So right now, that all the information that slow pages needed, it's just stored into one table. You also have this lookup table called dimension keys. This dimension keys holds data or references data which is used in all of these fact tables. So now the reason Sitecore went into fact and dimensions was earlier if you saw that doing any kind of Sitecore custom reporting, for example, you had a requirement that, hey, one of my client requires us to use Sitecore reporting tools to report on custom data. The custom data can be anything. It can range from comments, it can range from ratings, or any other custom things you design. So now earlier it was difficult to use Sitecore analytics to use or do such kind of things because they were very tightly coupled and you really could not do. But one good news I would like to say, and one of the very key features of Sitecore 8 is that you can store your custom data. You can see that you can have a fact table called fact_comments, and you can store those comments, and then using this reporting database, you can store a report on it basically straight away in Experience Analytics, which means that now Sitecore 8 onwards, you should never ever need of a separate reporting tool. Sitecore gives you in form of these facts and dimensions. So that was one of the interesting things I liked about it. And so let's take a look at our dimension key. So here, as you can see, this dimension table has a bunch of information about stored in a dimension key ID and a dimension lookup table. So as you can see, right side you will see a lot of information about the pages visited, or if the user triggered a goal, or some GUIDs which talks back about a lot of different things. So that's interesting because dimension key is a growing table which just references data. If I want to take a look at one of the fact tables, the interesting thing you will notice is everything is in a GUID format, right? The goal ID, earlier if you saw in analytics database, everything used to be stored as name or goal name, but now everything is referenced based on GUID. So you have the site name ID, device name ID, and in turn the dimension table looks it up and maps these things. So heavy reliance on GUIDs have been imparted into Sitecore 8, which kind of gives us the flexibility that anytime any name changes or anytime things changes, they are automatically referenced as GUIDs so that you really never lose any kind of data. So one of the things earlier I had a problem was all of a sudden I renamed the name of the goal, and all of a sudden I had reports which were changing both of these things. So I had when I generated report, half of the report would show the old name, half of the report would show the new name, because the way Sitecore pre 7.5 analytics was designed is a lot of that information was just name based and not GUID based. But now since we have this GUID based information, it makes it so easy that everything or any content name changes you do, you no longer lose that data. So this is one of the very interesting facts. And Sitecore has like a lot of different tables, and then some of them are used again by system. So for example, the accounts table has been used by system, and then there is an interesting table called contact. This contact is a one-to-one mapping with the MongoDB contacts table, which means the information in MongoDB and the information in dbo.contact should match all the times. And if it doesn't matches, then there's some problem in your either processing or aggregation. So if I quickly look at what does my contacts hold, so my contacts is nothing but it just contains my contact ID, and it has some kind of an login information. So you see some of that information here. You have authentication level, and you also have some kind of tags over here. So again, I have 7 records in my dbo.contacts table in Sitecore reporting. So if I quickly open up my Mongo, and if I open up my collection, and if I view the documents, so here I see 8, which means that one of the contact records has not been flushed because the session hasn't ended. And the reason the session hasn't ended is I have that session opened up in my browser. But then again, as you can see, GUIDs. Let's suppose we take a GUID called E842 E835. It's a third record, E842. And then if I want to look back into my record, so the same GUID is referenced here. So which means that this is a straight one-to-one mapping in the GUID. So I forgot to explain you one thing, that whenever you install RoboMongo, you might not see these GUIDs. So one of the things you might want to do is on the options, and please make sure that you have this selected options, legacy UID encoding, and say that use .NET encoding. So if you do not decode or show as is, you might see a different GUID format and you might have a need to convert it. So this is a very key thing because I really like to have data so that I can quickly references based on GUID. So this is one of the key things which I really like. And so the options legacy UI coding, use .NET encoding. And if you use some other tool apart from RoboMongo, then you might have some different options. But for the purpose of this presentation, I'm using RoboMongo and I have had some seriously good luck with it. So that you guys know. A little tidbit of information always helps, I guess. So obviously after the demo of reporting database, now let's look at the big picture. Now you guys know a lot of interesting things. So this is the big picture. Obviously now you have known that you have two types of databases, collection and reporting, and there is a process which runs between them, takes data from collection and pushes into reporting. So in this diagram I show you that there is a website traffic, which means that this website traffic is hitting your website. All the data on session end is stored in collection DB. The green leaf denotes Mongo. And there is this operation called continuous update, which is a part of processing. And then the data is pushed into reporting database, which is SQL Server. And from there, it goes to the reporting application. So at a high level, I would show you the sequence. The latest interactions are saved to the collection database on session end. Then interaction data is added to processing pool for aggregation. An agent worker picks it up and hands it to the aggregator. The aggregator is responsible to push the interaction through pipeline and converts in a form which is suitable for reporting database, and it creates updates records in analytics index. So that is a high level of analytics data processing. So if you talk about reporting architecture, obviously things have changed a little bit. So I would explain you using this diagram. So the first one is called application server. Here I have a couple of CD servers, CD1 and CD2, and a production environment. I have a session state server with private and shared. Obviously, we are going to cover that in a little bit. And then you have this database server. As soon as session ends, things are pushed into MongoDB. And then here, we'll talk about some interesting things. Obviously, processing can be a server in itself. So obviously, for local development environments, you can host everything together. But Sitecore recommends to use a processing server because processing server is heavy and intensive operations which consistently runs, maps the data, and reduces the data. So what is the role of processing server? The processing server does two things. One, pushes the data into reporting database. And two, pushes the data into analytics index. This is a key interesting phenomena of analytics index. So until now, we really didn't have we really didn't talk about analytics index. Analytics index is a Lucene-based index, and it is used for a lot of different purposes. I'll explain you what are the different things. And then what it does is, finally, the data analysis layer talks to the reporting service, and that reporting service in turn, fills up these things: contact record, engagement analytics, email campaign management, web form for marketers, and custom report. Basically, it is a reporting service which reports on a variety of data. So I really want to talk about this analytics index. What is this analytics index and what does it do? So in analytics index, first of all, what I would like to do is quickly open up my Sitecore interface. And one other thing I would like to show here is the use of this analytics index. One of the key things which I found about analytics index is being used by a lot of reporting applications, and these reporting applications can be interesting. Here I am taking a look at my indexes, and then here I have this analytics indexes along with all of these other indexes. So it is just like an index. It will contain segments and it will contain different information about that. But one of the interesting thing I stumbled upon, and I found it very, very interesting, is you all might be familiar with this whole Sitecore 8 interface, and if you are not, then this is the Sitecore 8 interface. It is responsive. At the same time, it is using a lot of speak applications, and then the terminology is called Launchpad. So here quickly what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my control panel, and control panel is pretty much similar as it used to be earlier. And I would go to my indexing manager, and I would like to see how's my indexing manager. So here I would want you to pay close attention. the Sitecore.analytics underscore index is missing from this one. And that stumbled me. Like, oh, is something wrong with my configuration? Or what is the reason? Because I don't see Sitecore underscore analytics over here. So my friends, you cannot rebuild the search index, which is analytics index, from your Sitecore control panel because it's the way Sitecore has designed. And then this is the single most reason where you talk about, if you remember earlier slides, you had this reporting.secondary. And now I explain you in detail about that. So if you're familiar with the demo pages, right? So there is this admin page, and it is called sitecore.admin.rebuild reporting database. So this reporting database is nothing but it rebuilds your Sitecore Analytics Index. In short, if you want to rebuild a Sitecore Analytics Index, you have to run this page. And for the brevity of presentation, I have already written an interesting post about it on our blog called blog.horizontalintegration.com. So this is the blog URL, and the name of the blog post is Rebuilding Sitecore Analytics Index, and this will talk about introduction that you need a secondary database called reporting.secondary in order to rebuild the report. Kind of I was stumbled upon, but that is kind of the required setting, which is really needed at this point to rebuild the reporting database. What I'm going to do is quickly, I am going to show what is basically stored in our. I'm using Luke to open up the Sitecore Analytics Index because I want to see what is the information stored on that. Okay, I'm going to open up. So here, again, it's a document-based format, and you can see it stores a lot of different information, and it also stores this type called visit page, and there are different types of that whole information which is being captured. So every interaction you do or every visit you make to the site, things are updated in this analytics index, and that's why the maintenance of analytics indexes is very, very critical and also very important. So obviously, I want to run down to all of these features of analytics index, but the fourth point here is very important. This index is used by many reporting applications and notably Experience Profile. So if your Sitecore Analytics Index gets corrupted, even though the MongoDB has correct data and even though the reporting DB has correct data, you will not be able to see the correct data. And it is a critical piece of information. You always have to remember that this Experience Profile is nothing but the contact card, and it is an aggregation of all the data. Obviously, we saw that we need a special admin page to rebuild these indexes, and then we obviously saw how these indexes work. The takeaway, there are only two takeaways. One, you cannot rebuild using indexing manager. You have to use the rebuild indexing. And the second thing is it is used by a lot of reporting applications. A lot of the times the information about analytics index is hidden, but I would consider it as a high priority index, and at all times we need to make sure that the index is updated. And manually you do not do any updates, Sitecore automatically does it. But at some reason, if things get corrupted because Mongo is down or there's some issues in Sitecore reporting database, there is a need of rebuilding that analytics index. And the blog post which I showed you will certainly help. And one more takeaway that while during the presentation, I'm going to use a lot of links or a lot of different tools. At the end of the presentation, I would write up an email explaining all the tools and links and pass it on to the SUGIN members so that they can be ensured that they can pass it to your email box. So make sure that you have the email addresses with the SUGIN team members, and they can certainly give you the presentation as well as the tools used in that. Now, my favorite topic, session state. Obviously, you all know that what is a session state in Proc is a default .NET session state provider. Now, Sitecore really introduces two type of session states: private, which always existed, pre 7.5 we used to call it in Proc, and shared. So what is difference between this private and shared, and do I really need shared? So let's not talk about shared for now, but let's talk about what is stored in what. The private session is basically having all the information, example like pages visited, goals converted, event triggered, campaigns activated, engagement value points, things like that. So obviously, as you know that all of this data is stored in session, and only on session end it is passed on to the MongoDB. Now let's talk about shared. Like, what is the shared index? The shared index contains the contact details, the devices, and the automation states. So in order to explain this clearly, I would like to say that Sitecore supports shared or out of process sessions provider, and it has a couple of different providers. You can use either MongoDB or SQL Server, or you can straight away use the session state store from the SQL Server for the inproc 2. And these are supported out of the boxes. So I want to explain, like, okay, what do I gain or what do I lose when I use shared session? So in this example, I have this visit 1 session. The visit 1 and visit 2, they are from the same person, but from different sources, maybe different browsers or different devices or different locations altogether. So now I have this visit 1 and this visit 2. The shared session will hold the contact record until a time where it identifies that before the visit 1 ends and before the visit 2 gets captured, which means that if visit 1 and visit 2 overlap each other before the expiration of visit 1, the information regarding that contact is stored in contact record. Now, first question, let's answer that if I do not have shared session, because out of the box, when you install Sitecore, everything is in proc. So there's really nothing which is stored in a different provider. So we are really not using out of the box session provider. But what I would like to example I would like to give is automation stage. So I am on a website trying to purchase a product. So I am on this site called abc.com, and I visit for a product called example product might be an audio system. So when I go into this audio system and I add it to the cart, suddenly I get a call and I am on my mobile phone trying to shop for the event. So I am initiating a second visit. At that point, the user which has added that product into the cart or the automation state he is in, Sitecore will not really know about the visit 2 is from the same person as visit 1 if we do not have a shared session. So that can cause confusion or parallel concurrent action, and for a high profile website or a high e-commerce website, this can be a clear problem because you are really wanting to track all your contacts and make sure that the shared session does it. So shared session is critical just to store a couple of information. So here you can make a good judgment call, right? If you do not use contact details or if you do not use automation states or you're really not worried about the devices, then I think you can ignore shared completely, or you can ignore the shared session completely, and then you can go with private because private still captures a lot of the analytics data. So I can clearly say that, yep, I don't need it and I should be good. Quickly, I would like to show you session state provider. So I have configured as Mongo. So here, as you can see, my session mode is custom and custom provider. So this is for private, because here, as you can see, in my connection strings, I have this configuration called session type is private. So it is directly in web config. That's where I have stored. So the shared session is in a file called sitecore.analytics.tracking, and that's what my shared is configured. So here, as you can see, that I have my Mongo, and this is a shared session provider. So default is Mongo, but you can also use some other types in highlighted ones. Like by default, it is in proc, as you can see over here. So finally, it's time for some goodies. Let's talk about experience profile and how this all behaves. So I'm going to show you a quick overview of my experience profile. So I log into Sitecore as admin, and then I click on experience profile. So here is my experience profile. I'm a huge cricket fan, and that's why you would see a lot of different names over there. India lost, but they did a fair fight over there. So I think I'm here to cheer you up today with some of the interesting. So let's start with my god, Sachin Tendulkar. So people who don't know about this person, he's a famous cricketing personality, and he has been. There's only one religion for sports enthusiasts, and that is cricket. So here I am showing you a contact record. So quickly, if I go back, one of the interesting things I would like to show is this all information is straight away coming from analytics database. This page, the dashboard, heavily uses the analytics index. So even though if you have a contact in your Mongo, but if your analytics does not have that information, all of this data is wiped out and you would not have that information. So once I click on that, very interesting. Sitecore is very nice because it has consistently made sure that the URLs point back to a contact ID. So here you can see Sachin Tendulkar's contact ID starts with 4AC1, and you can use that contact ID to pretty much reference it anywhere in the system, in MongoDB or in a Sitecore reporting database or even in indexes. So this is one key interesting thing I really like about it. So quickly talking about experience profile, here you see the timeline. A timeline shows that, what did the user do during that time, and this small point shows the number of visits he made during that time. So the timeline is, you can click on that and you can still be able to see what he did during that particular thing. Obviously you have these latest events. These latest events talk about different events. They are triggered, they are goals, and you have this pattern matches. Recent campaign, I have introduced the SUGIN campaign, and then information about that. But one of the interesting things I would like to say is you get the complete picture of a contact in one single application. The events they triggered, the pattern matches they did, the recent campaigns, so on and so forth. You also have very finite detail. For example, this person triggered a campaign. Really, what did he do? So you can click on that and you could have a detailed report. For example, the URLs they visited, the number of time they were on that, and a different kind of goals they triggered during those things. So that is really critical and important. And that's how data is stored in this experience profile. So now for the next part of my presentation, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a whole new contact and show you what is going on in that area. So I'm going to visit the site, xp.local.com. And this is nothing but a launch Sitecore site. I have used launch Sitecore as my base. Here, what I have done is I have made sure I have two information. So as soon as my session starts, I have two informations: contact ID, where this contact ID is automatically assigned to a person, and there is this known visitor, where you can know if the visitor is known. So right now the visitor is not known because it is anonymous. So now what I will do is I would like to, since I have started this session, and I would like to create a I would like to register myself, right? And I would like to quickly enter register a person, and then quickly add a picture. And I've registered myself. So as soon as I register myself, this contact ID kind of changes. As you can see, I got this contact ID, and my known visitor also will change, which is known, right? Because now the visitor is known to us because he has done a bunch of different things with us. So now the interesting thing is I keep on doing some operations on the site. For example, I search for some terms, and I do different things here. So now I would like to show you my MongoDB, and right now I have just 8 contacts, but if I were to refresh it or recompile it, I should be able to see 9. Now the fantastic question you ask, that I always told you that session gets pulled into Sitecore only based on session end event, but Sitecore, when you use shared session, it kind of stores data about it pretty easily. So right now I only have my identification level, because what I have done is I have kind of identified myself to the system. That means my contact ID, which is D67, has been registered, right? So this is the key important thing which has been registered. So now again, I have visited some pages, I have did some searches. None of that data is yet there in my MongoDB, but only I get here my 3 fields are just an identification field. So rest of all the data, like the visits I do, the profiles I see, all of that data is basically still not captured in MongoDB because the session has not ended. So now I'll forcefully abandon my session. Like I say, yep, my session is abandoned, which means that now at some point my data should get captured into MongoDB. So I get back to my MongoDB, and I have these 3 fields over here, right? So if I zoom, you can see that I just have 3 fields over here, and none of the other data is here. So now I'll rerun my query, and then now I see all of my 7 fields in here. So I'm going to view the document, and then I see a lot. This is a different record. Let me see if I. Okay. So here, all of my data, Salman, and all of that information is pretty much stored, and this MIME type is for the picture. So if you want to know that how I have fulfilled this data, there is another blog post on blog.horizontal on how to associate programmatic information to a contact record. You can view that. But now, since I have done this and my session has ended, probably the processing pool should already be activated, and it should already store that in my contact record. My indexes should get updated. So if I click on my experience profile, I should be able to see Salman Khan. Voila, I see Salman Khan over here because it says that I have visited the website. So if I see, I have a picture of Salman over here on the right, and he has made some visits. He had registered, so he has done a lot of interesting things. So the processing power is really fast, and it also explains about different events. So I did search for something, and I did register for the goal. So this whole 9 yards, as you can see, has been interesting because that's how Experience Profile can really jump in and help you in doing different kind of information. And Experience Profile is really, really robust, and I feel that it is very, it can capture a bunch of interesting things and a bunch of interesting information, and you can all combine them together. If you would ask me that, hey, what if my user does not registers myself, and if I don't have that kind of information, you'll be still able to get most of the information, only that it will be anonymous and you will have no way to connect it. But certainly there are other ways, like newsletter signups, you can track the email addresses, or by form submissions you can track different variables. So you would need the user to give you some kind of information to tag along. So now quickly let's talk about analytics events. There are 3 types of analytics events. The first one are called goals, second is called failure, and third is called system. So events are nothing but they track user activity on a website. So right now I showed you that the user registered himself, and I would be able to see in those events. So basically those are all nothing but user defined goals, where you can have page visits, add to favorites, download media assets, and submit a form, things like that. It is pretty easy because I can clearly again go to my xp.local.com, and now what I'm going to do is I have this, please pay attention to this control called getting started with launch Sitecore. So this is my control, getting launched with Sitecore. So I have a goal running, which means that if the user triggers an add to favorite goal, so here I have add to favorite. So as soon as I click that, it is added into my list of favorites on the top, and that triggers the goal. So if I go back to my home page and then check here, it says my favorite goals is triggered. So there is a couple of interesting things happening behind the scenes. One, the goal is being triggered. Two, there is a personalization of component which is happening on this goal trigger. It has been nothing from Sitecore 8 perspective, nothing has really changed, but I would like to show you a couple of interesting things what leads to this whole goal capacities. So here, going into our experience editor, I'll go to my marketing control panel. So there is some really nice shortcuts where marketing center has been renamed to marketing control panel. So you could go into this marketing control panel and have your regular information. So here I'm going to click on my goals and obviously launch Sitecore and then add a favorite. So obviously the data is pretty simple. It is tracked based on some name of the goal, some points are nothing but engagement value. But the interesting thing here is the experience profile options. I want you to pay attention on this track as latest event. The track as latest event ensures that this page event will show on the experience profile, and then show in events. Ensure this page event shows in list of events on experience profile. So these interesting things, if they are checked on these 2 things, then you'll be certainly able to track all of these interesting features. So again, I want to show you the track as latest event in my experience profile. So if I'm opening Daniel Vettori, he's one of my favorite bowlers. So here you see latest events, right? This latest events will hold all of that information. So now in my add to favorite, right, here it shows in this list of events, so that if you have some certain events to track, you can certainly check that box and your latest event should appear over here. Now, one of the hidden features of Sitecore from a long time is called page events. So this is an interesting feature, and I use it heavily on a regular basis. So if I were to go into Sitecore setting and analytics, and I'm looking for page events. So here it is, page events, and that is in Sitecore settings, Sitecore system settings analytics. And these page settings are system settings which Sitecore has it on its own. So the interesting thing is I'm going to take a look at my search, because I have a search component on my site and I want to track that search. So here you can see that it is nothing but it is based on the same type of template like in experience profile, and then you can have data. So it is system, that's why you have marked it as 0. But this also can be tracked, and that is the key interesting things, because I can track events, which means it can be any system event. So if you think that goals are only for users or marketers, you're wrong. Goals are for developers too. But developers, for example, I want to track what people are searching, or I want to track that no search hits are found, then I can certainly do that. So to show this, showcase this functionality, I would like to, before doing that, I would like to show you different things. For example, obviously here, this is a key slide. So in order to do that, I have written a little extension method. So if on the current page, if you want to register anything, then obviously you could use a small snippet called tracker.current.currentpage.register. This basically will register that event, because registering that event will ensure that the goal or the event which you're trying. So in my case, this one would be name, would be my search event, and the text would be the search text. But sometimes, since in component-based architecture, for example, you have a Sitecore content-based architecture. In that architecture, you have a page, but it is made up of a lot of data source components, like small data source components. And if you want to trigger goal on that component, because you don't want to trigger it on that page, because you just want to track on that particular component, then you can track it based on this register page event, and it uses the Sitecore.analytics.page event data. Again, here, the key things here are you can define ID. The third parameter in this is an item ID. So you can straight away pass in that item ID and tell Sitecore, hey Sitecore, just make sure that you trigger the goal on that item ID. Because most of the time, this the above piece of code, the current page, will only give you Sitecore.context.item. By default, it does not accept an item ID. So always it is the context item. But if you have a data source and you want to trigger a goal on the data source, the second code will accept a parameter called item ID. So you can pass in the data source item ID, and the definition ID is nothing but the goal definition, the item ID, and then you can pass in the data and the text similarly the top, and then that's how you would register it. So that's pretty neat. So now I would like to take a brief look at our analytics reporting. So analytics reporting has 50 plus out of the box reports. They are housed under Experience Analytics, and they're pretty easy to extend for the matter of fact. So I'm going to take a brief look at our Experience Analytics. So as you can see, there are 50 plus reports, and it is very interesting. I'm gonna change the timestamp to last week to show you different aspects of data. So you can see the data is showing like how many interactions I have, visits per value, channel groups, campaigns. This is one important report, pattern matches. It was not available pre-Sitecore 7.5, but now they have done a very good job of reporting just based on pattern matches. So here, as you can see, I have these patterns and I have my users matching up to the patterns. But I would like to show you an interesting one. We were just talking about events, right? And events, I was talking about internal search, like, okay, what are the users are searching on different things. I think this is one solid example that each and every developer should incorporate, because this is a fantastic feature. With just one line of code, which I showed you, you can register your search events. So here you can see that search for the users are searching for these terms, Sitecore, runout, testing results, and you can see all this information about how well if they search something. So out of this, I can see this one is converted a lot. So I can click back and see a lot of different information about this whole internal search. So I feel that these are really important. I would like to show you how this search is being used. So if you can bear with me for a moment, I'm going to search. And so as I told you, right, it is just one piece of code which is pretty much so here. um, I am register goal on page. I showed you that little helper method. So the name of the event is search, and then I'm just using the search string which is passed in by the user. So if the results are 0, then I can trigger the same no search hits found code, and then I would get that. So as you can see, right, spending 1 minute and you doing this out of the box, Sitecore can give you enormous amount of reports, and it is of a huge marketing value if you know how your search is performing on the site. So that's how. I have also done some custom reports called no hits, which means it is behind the scenes. It is tracking all the hits which are not being used. So, for example, I have this. I have done searches on some crazy terms like FAQ, LBW, India, cricket, and then uh, obviously we gave it back the World Cup. I'm a little sad about it, but the slogan for this time World Cup was Cricket World Cup was we won't give it back, but kind of we have to give it back. But yeah, whatever it is, these are not realistic examples. I was just in a gloomy mind while I was working on this session because India lost. But the whole idea is, you can do this. So one of more comprehensive reporting is search no hits. If you want to do a very comprehensive reporting, then you could also do that, which means by count, by conversion rate, you could do a lot of interesting things. For example, if I want to see that what the user is searching exactly and what's going on in that session, it can really tell you the conversion rate. The conversion rate is 300%, which is extremely good, and the value is 6 visits per value. So that's how easy is it. Again, it is a wealth of information in Sitecore 8. Obviously, I'm hoping that we probably will have more and more sessions on this. And this basic session for me was just to get you excited about Sitecore 8, just to know behind the scenes what is running. But certainly, each and every of these topics can be a topic of its own. For example, if you had one more extra hour, I could explain you what analytics report is and how you really design these custom reports. But due to the nature of our limited time, or even with the experience profile, or as a matter of fact, path analyzer, all these are fantastic and great topics. So for all of you folks who are listening to this session, I'm pretty sure all of you have unique skill sets and have that capabilities. I would honestly recommend that we all as a group share this fantastic knowledge with each other. And I forgot to tell you one thing. This is my first virtual user group session, so I was very nervous, and but I was just so excited to share all this wealth of information with you guys, because coming back to my quote, all is lost which is not shared. So that's the reason. And I know some of the presentation might have been quicker to you. The reason was that due to the limited time and nature, but I think I will have enough time to open for questions. But before that, there are some key things which I want you to explain. The first thing is, I would want to honestly thank the organizing committee of Sitecore User Group India for this honest and noble initiative, because this takes time to prepare. Every time a presenter is presenting, obviously the presenter spends time, but all these organizers spend their weekend time away from their family to for this honest cause. So I would like all of you to support that. I would like to thank my company Horizontal Integration for giving me this opportunity to prepare and present for this. Then I would like to thank the launch Sitecore team who have built a very great solution on Sitecore 8 so that I'm able to use it and learn the new features without putting a lot of effort. So a genuine thanks to launch Sitecore team. And then to all of you community bloggers, because all of these bits and pieces of information, whenever I have question, someone somewhere on this earth have written about this. That is the fantastic nature of this community. I always get inspired by these people producing so much of good work. So thank you, Sitecore community, for your avid blogging. At this point, I would like to field any questions you guys might have.
Yeah, Sheetal, we'll just check out on Twitter first if there are some questions. Basically, what we do is we always have a hashtag called SUG India, #SUG India, and ask the viewers to ask some questions. So we will just check out on Twitter if there are some questions.
Sure. I was just checking, and till this point of time, no questions. But overall, the session was good, Sheetal. Thanks for that. I have two questions. So, guys, if you have some questions, the way to ask question is go to Twitter, #SUG India, and ask your question. In the meantime, we'll ask our question. So, I have a couple of questions for you, Sheetal. First question is, as you said that we can personalize the user experience for offline as well. So I will just take your example of cricket's god Sachin Tendulkar. Let's say Sachin buys a MRF bat on the website. At the same time, let's say his son Arjun says, "I would like to buy it from the store," and they go and buy it from the store. Is there any way we can personalize or record that session or that interaction within a site core?
Yeah, certainly. That is a very good question. First of all, Kiran, so I would like to explain you a couple of key things. A couple of key things are offline interactions can be merged multiple of variety ways. The first of way would be, all the offline and the online interactions for a particular organization has to come from a particular CRM. For example, the SKU of it, as soon as they scan the bat, some kind of information should always be a common repository called CRM. So Sitecore integrates with the latest CRMs. One of the greatest example is Salesforce, and through that Salesforce, what we can do is we can identify the contact even in offline or online, and then you can try to merge them. So end of the day, the CRM should be connected with our content management system to make that happen, or offline interaction. Sitecore does also give a slew of new technologies such as outcomes. Outcomes is a marketing definitions, and it also does a couple of interesting things where you can seriously take that offline interaction and merge that back to online. So certainly there is a little bit of work from a developer's perspective, like integration of CRM, merging of records. But yeah, that is one of the way you could do it.
Okay. Okay, I think it answers my questions. We'll check Twitter again if anyone has a question. No, no question as of now. So we can wait for 5 minutes. Guys, if you have questions, go ahead. Okay, I think I would like to share a few things. Like when before joining Horizontal, I was not knowing anything about Sitecore Analytics, to be honest, and I was lucky to be getting trained from a person like Sheetal. Like if I can recall the first session we had where he explained about the goal, the process about CAT process, create, assign, and trigger a goal. So that was really helpful. And again, I would must say that if you are not using Sitecore Analytics in your Sitecore platform, then somewhere you are not utilizing the power you got. So again, if, as a developer, if you are not using it, or as a company, if you are not using it, you should or you must use it. And as Sheetal rightly said that SUGIN team spends a lot of time over the weekends or updating the website and updating the page over the night. So thanks to the folks just keeping the things going on. And as Sheetal rightly said that it's always good to share the knowledge, because from the last story which we had in January, it says that every one of us would like to be a Sea of Galilee and not a Dead Sea. So that's the reason why we come out of the bed every morning and just keep sharing the stuff. And I think as Varun rightly said at the starting that in January we are having only one MVP, and now we have 4 MVPs sitting in the room and 1 MVP presenting. That has been a kind of a culture of horizontal integration or horizontal India. As you can see that in India there are 6 MVPs and 4 are from horizontal India. So we feel really proud, and I think whatever efforts you can spend on the weekend or in the night, we feel that it gets paid off. And same overall horizontal integration wise or HI wise, we got 7 MVPs. So yeah, so it shows our culture, and because of sharing, we are getting paid off whatever hours we spend. So we'll check that if you have any questions, but I don't see any questions. So it looks like people are just still going through what you explained, Sheetal. So if you have any questions, folks, just reach out to or you can ask on the SUGIN email you got, or SUGIN current event page. You can ask the question there, and we'll try to route those questions to Sheetal, and he'll be happy to answer those questions.
Yeah. And guys, one more thing I would like to add is certainly I'm going to make this presentation copy available, and also I would like to add all of the links onto my blog. But one interesting thing is most of my presentation which I have explained today, most of the techniques are already blogged in our company blog called blog.horizontalintegration.com. So I would like to request you guys to just take a peek at it and see if you have some information which might be worth your time. And again, it was a great honor and pleasure to present for SUGIN India. Thank you, SUGIN team.
Sure.
Thank you, Sheetal. Thank you for the great presentation. And thank you everyone who joined us today for the session. Taking time from your weekend out. Rather, you could have spent it with your family or your friends. But thank you for joining us and making this session a success. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good time.